Hey, welcome back to another weekly service here at Church Home. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Judah, and we are just several days now removed from an unusual political chapter here in the United States of America or wherever you are in the world. We love you. This talk is part two of Moments in the Mountain. What do you do when life feels like a climb? What do you do when life feels surrounded by mountains? I shared last week that I went on a hike in Arizona with my wife years and years ago. I hope I never go on that hike again. And on that particular hike, I think she said it was going to be like a 15-minute hike. It turned into like at least a 45-minute hike up and then a 45-minute hike down, which is approximately 2 hours, which I thought was going to be 30 minutes. And I remember going up the hill, seeing people come by, asking them how much longer, coming around another bend, seeing another peak and another climb and more to do. And it got me thinking about what happens when life feels like that. Maybe your candidate did not get voted in. Maybe life feels overwhelming. Maybe you feel like you're in the mountains. And it got me thinking about a passage where Jesus references moving mountains. In fact, he says if you have faith enough. Mark 11 speaks of this as well, but we've been looking at Matthew chapter 17. In Matthew 17, Jesus says if you just have a little bit of faith, you can say to whole mountains, go over there and they'll move. What could he possibly mean? And how could this be relevant to you and me in these mountain chapters of our life? Now, you might be watching this going, I'm kind of in the best season of my life. That's so awesome. This definitely could be one of those things you could just register for later, because life is going to have moments where you feel overwhelmed. You feel like you're in pain. You feel like there's lots of problems, lots of challenges. And if you're like me, I feel so much of kind of what's going on around me and what's going on in my country, what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on in cities. And then I read my news feed in the morning in the bathtub, and I feel like what's going on all over the world sometimes just gets overwhelming, and all of this kind of like helplessness and hopelessness settles in over me like a dark cloud, and it's like, oh gosh, what do I do? I think today this story will give us perspective. It'll give us scale when it comes to these challenges and difficulties. Let me read this to you in the Passion Translation. Matthew chapter 17, starting with verse 19. It says, later the disciples came to Jesus privately and asked, why couldn't we cast out this demon? And he told them, well, it's because of your lack of faith. I promise you, if you have faith inside of you, no bigger than the little size of a small mustard seed, you can say to a mountain, move away from here, go over there, and you'll see it move. Nothing will be impossible to you. There's nothing you won't be able to do. Now, keep in mind, in context, this is Matthew's gospel written primarily to a Jewish audience. Also, keep in mind that the ancient Jews at this point are experiencing incredible political unrest in relationship to Rome and oppression from Rome. There is exorbitant taxation, amongst many other things that are happening to the Jewish people. And when Jesus speaks of mountains, he is using also, so you understand what the ancient audience is hearing, he's using a very famous term. Mustard seed was the probably the smallest seed known to man at the time, and it kind of grew into like a 10 feet plant that was pretty significant. So he's simply, mustard seed isn't the goal, mountain isn't the goal or the point. He's making metaphor and illustration that is very pertinent and relevant to his audience. In those days, rabbis were said to be uprooters of mountains if they could help you understand theology or philosophy more accurately. And so Jesus is saying, hey, if you have a little bit of faith in me, Eugene Peterson says in the Message Bible, when the guys come and they say, hey, why can't we cast out this demon? He says, well, you're not taking God seriously, which is to say you're not truly absorbing all that Jesus is doing, what he's showing you about God. So I want to make 3 observations that I think can help you. It is certainly helping me in seasons of unrest, in seasons of mountainous moments that seem overwhelming, insurmountable, when life feels a lot like that hike I went on with my wife. It's like around another turn, there's more to climb, there's more to do, there's more to try, there's more to attempt, there's more to earn, there's more for you to do and more for you to work on. If you're like me, I just want to turn on Netflix and eat my favorite candy and forget about the world. Maybe you feel like that. The challenge is when I'm done watching the Netflix show and eating my favorite candy, the problem, the pain, and the challenge is still there. What are you going to do? Natural, cultural, kind of accepted, prevalent teaching today tells us you need to work harder, try harder, do more, be better, and then you can rid yourself of things like fear or pain or sensations of being overwhelmed. I think there's a better way. And I want to show you the better way that Jesus speaks of here in Matthew 17. The first observation is this: there is no if in this faith. Jesus says, I promise you, if you have faith inside you, no bigger than the size of a mustard seed. Now, we take that if, and what we think Jesus is saying is if, like there may or may not be faith. I want you to know right now, the fact that you are here, even listening to this content, is evidence enough to me that there is faith already in seed form in your life. So it's not an if. That if is a, how should I say, it is a way that Jesus is communicating to pull the audience in and say, if, there's no if. Faith is not something you concoct or you conjure up. Faith is something God gives you as a gift. And I'm here to say that God has given you this gift of faith in seed form already. That's why you're here watching this content, or that's why you're a part of this faith community all over the world. You already have a faith. You can already absorb what God is doing, and you can take it to the bank, or as Eugene Peterson says, you can take it seriously. There is no if. You have faith. What if you acted with the assurance that you have this faith that Jesus speaks of? He says, if you have an itty little bit of this faith, what is that faith? It's the persuasion that God has revealed himself in the person of Jesus. And remember, the ultimate mountain that we learned last week is the mountain of rules and lists of laws that you have to fulfill and I have to fulfill so that we can finally feel good about ourselves and right with the one who made us and built us in the first place. But we don't have to do that anymore. Life is not about climbing. Life is not about earning. Life is not about deserving. Life is not about a list of rules, regulations, principles, or moral concepts that you adhere to or that I adhere to. Jesus has completely changed our realm of thinking, operating, living, and even processing the human experience. It's no longer about you and me. It's about him and what he did. So now that faith that's erupting in your heart, even right now, think about the rest of your life. The rest of your life can no longer orbit around this idea of what you do or don't do, or if you're enough or not enough. But now your whole life can orbit around the fact that he's enough and what he did was enough. The Bible says that when Jesus died on the middle cross between two thieves, that the earth shook and the sky went dark and there was an earthquake. Even the groaning of creation itself recognized that the man on the middle cross that day in Calvary was different. And just like he said, he didn't die like thousands of people died in crucifixion. He was buried in a rich man's grave. 3 days later, he appeared to more than 1,500 eyewitnesses and then levitated into the clouds and said he would return again, which is to say he has conquered death as we know it. So even the sting of death and the fear of death is gone. You can tell I'm excited about this because our entire orbit of existence changes. Now that has to impact our finances. That has to impact our physical body, even our identity and our appearance. That has to impact how we view politics in our respective countries, or even who's in the presidency or who isn't in the presidency. That has to completely change our entire outlook of life. Now, that was a lot, but I want to bring you back to Matthew 17, because remember the context of our story. These guys come to Jesus because the dad earlier in Matthew 17 says, I have a son who suffers from a demon, and the demon causes him epilepsy. The demon causes him to have seizures. I took him to your disciples, your followers, and they couldn't cast out the devil or the demon. So I brought him to you. Jesus cast out the demon in a moment, and the boy is free and healed and healthy. Later, the disciples, which is the passage we're studying, they pulled Jesus aside and said, why couldn't we do that thing you did? Why couldn't we set the boy free from the demon? Their mindset was completely focused on a boy and a demon and how they could do that. Jesus' response is not specifically about one instance. It's not specifically about one challenge. It's not specifically about one mountainous moment. Jesus is panning the camera back, if you will, and he's trying to tell his disciples what all of life is about. He's saying all life is about trusting Jesus. All life is about trusting what I am doing on your behalf. All of life is understanding that the mountain that stood between the divine and man, that kept us apart, that mountain I have come, Jesus is insinuating, to remove so that we can have communion, fellowship, and relationship with the divine, which changes everything. The guys want to know about the boy and the demon. Jesus wants to let them know how the whole earth and the orbit of human existence has changed forever due to his arrival and what he would do on the cross, his death, his burial, and his resurrection. Today, maybe you want an answer on, God, what about this one instance? What about my money? What about my body? What about politics? What about my political party? What about my greed? What about my fear? What about my addiction? What about my pain? What about my anxiety? What about and all of that is so significant to God. But today, we're panning the camera back to put all of those problems in perspective. Jesus says if you had just a little bit of faith, if you took God seriously, you could say to that mountain, speaking even about the demon in the boy, or whatever you're facing right now, move over there and it would move. Which got me thinking, and this is my second observation. The first is there's no if. You have faith. This is proof right now, this moment. You have this little itty bitty seed form of faith in Jesus and what he's doing. It is already taking root in your life. It's already existing. So there is no if. You can act that you now know confidently that you have faith. But my second observation is put that mountain in its place. You got fear over the political landscape of this country? Put that mountain in its place. That mountain wants to be prevalent in your life. That mountain, it might be bankruptcy or greed or cancer or gossip or fear or insecurity. And that mountain comes to tell you, you don't have power. He says, if you'll trust in Jesus, you can say to all of the problems and pains and fears and anxiety in your life, you go back to your place. You go back to your place. My dad used to say about little babies, they think the whole world revolves around them. They literally don't know. When that baby grows up, and we did, didn't we? Hopefully, you start to realize, wow, the earth doesn't orbit. The sun doesn't orbit around me. It orbits around the earth. It's not all about me. And all of a sudden, you learn perspective. You learn scale. Jesus is speaking of scale and perspective. He's saying, listen, you've got to put this political season, a president is a president for 4 years, max 8 years. You got to put countries and continents and policies and all these things in their proper place. Not to say they have no value, but they're of so much smaller significance than what he has solved, which is that now man and God have relationship. And now there can be a friendship between humanity and a holy, holy, wonderful God. So now you can look at everything else in your life and say, hey, mountain, it's not saying that it'll necessarily go away, but you move over here. All of a sudden I get hope, not because some of my back pain goes away forever. I still wake up sometimes and my back hurts. But I say to that mountain, hey, you are not as big a deal as you make yourself out to be. You're not the end of my existence. This isn't the end of my life. Because the candidate that I wanted didn't get voted in is not the end of my life. And I'm not going to live in fear, and I'm not going to live in worry, and I'm not going to live in anxiety. I'm going to put you over here. I'm going to say to that mountain, hey, the mountain isn't the mountain. Jesus solved the mountain. The mountain was separation of God and man. But Jesus solved that mountain, removed that mountain. So I'm going to speak to my mountains. I'm going to talk to my mountains and say, hey, you move over here, fear. You move over here, anxiety. You move over here, bankruptcy. You move over here, divorce. And not that we make light of divorce or bankruptcy or cancer or fear or loss. I lost my father to multiple myeloma, and that is still something I think about every day. It's not a lack of empathy or care or concern, but it's a proper perspective. We are eternal beings and we will live forever, no matter what we win in this life or the next. And so when there is pain on our pathway of this life, instead of grinning and bearing it, gritting our teeth and trying to earn our way and deserve our way and warrant our way and moral our way and deeds our way and work our way, we sit back and we trust. And that makes us peculiar amongst all people on the planet, because instead of more stress and more striving, we get into more resting and more worshiping. And we trust the God who removed the mountain of separation between God and man can move any other mountain that comes along our way in this life. And lastly, my first observation is there's no if. You have faith. I believe it in seed form. Put this mountain in its place. And lastly, there is nothing higher than him and his love. There's nothing higher. There's nothing higher. He says there's nothing you couldn't do. There's nothing you can't go through. There's nothing you can't face. How would you know that, Judah? How would you know that? My family has pain like your family has pain. My family has problems like your family has problems. I have fears like you have fears. I have unknowns like you have unknowns. I have money problems like you have money problems. I have relationship breakdown in my family like you have relationship breakdown. I have fights in my marriage like you have fights in your marriage. My friends, we are in this together. Brother and sister, look at me when I say it. We are in this together, and I know what it feels like for marriage to feel like a mountain. I know what it feels like when a lack of money feels like a mountain. What are you going to do? Can you make it through? Can you even last the next 4 years? Can you make it through this bankruptcy? Can you make it through the diagnosis you just got from the doctor? What is going to happen? Friend, I can't promise you the outcome you want, but what I can promise you is there's nothing you can't go through. Why? Because nothing is higher than his love. 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 2 says, if I were to have the gift of prophecy and profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, and if I possess unending supernatural knowledge, and if I had the greatest gifts of faith that could move mountains, but I didn't love, then it's nothing. Which is to say, all the great feats of faith, mountain moving faith, none of it is higher, more important, more powerful than love. And that love spoken of 1 Corinthians 13 is not average romance we see on Netflix. That is the unconditional, unending love that only comes from God. And it is the highest, most potent, powerful thing in the universe. And you have it, unending and unconditional. Therefore, there is no mountain higher than his love. There is no pain higher than his love. There is no diagnosis higher than his love. There is no bankruptcy higher than his love. There's no relationship breakdown higher than his love. His love will see you through. His love will carry you higher. His love will carry you through. You will make it through because his love will see to it, because he loves you and he'll never leave you nor forsake you in this life and in the life to come. Nothing is higher than his love. There's nothing you can't go through because he loves you. Will you close your eyes just for a moment? And I want you to hear those words. As we conclude with a guided prayer, I want you to hear those words. There's nothing you can't go through with his love. Nothing. I wish you didn't have to go through this, friend. Whatever it is you're going through, I wish I could just take it away. He does that sometimes. It's a mystery. But a lot of times he doesn't. but he'll see you through. His love is higher. His love is stronger. His love is wider. His love is richer. His love is stronger. His love is more true, and his love is eternal. Your eyes closed, and I'm speaking those things over your life. Please hear me. You have not come this far to stop now. You have not trusted him to this point to go back to the old life. No, you've come this far to keep going into all that he has promised you. I wish that promise included no pain, I really do. But with your eyes closed, I hope you hear me. He will see you through. He will see you through. He will see you through. With your eyes closed, I want you to see yourself rejoicing, to see yourself celebrating. I want you to feel the love of God congratulating you. That's right, congratulating you for trusting, relying, resting, and letting go. With your eyes closed in this guided prayer moment, here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm literally asking you to, if you can, see yourself letting go of the most mountainous, painful problem in your whole life right now. Let it go. He won't ever let go so that you can. Literally let go of it. Might be your parents. Might be your own fears. It might be a secret that you feel like nobody knows, and if they did, they'd never love you. And let it go. God, I can only imagine what people are feeling right now watching this message. But you are there, and that's proof enough that your love never ends. I thank you for that. I thank you for that. As we conclude, I want you just to look in the camera with me, and I'm doing my best to look right in the camera in hopes that it's as if we're making eye contact. And we're going to do something in conclusion, and we're done. But I literally want you to say this with me. I'm letting go. Say that with me. I'm letting go. That's right. And you know what you're letting go of, and you know what you should let go of. Say with me, I'm letting go. I'm letting go. I think the disciples heard Jesus say these statements, and I think their eyes went way beyond just a plagued problem that they couldn't cure. And they realized the whole world had changed. Their whole life was changing. And they needed to take God more seriously. One of the ways we take God more seriously is we let go. So we're going to let go. You already said it by now, I hope. And I'm going to leave you to it now in hopes that you're watching this with a few friends where you guys can dialogue and talk and maybe perhaps even pray for each other. I love you, Church Home. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you again next week.
Seated on the highest throne, a love like I have never known. The Lord of earth and heaven, Holy One, there is no one like you. Jesus, you're so beautiful. All of my heart is yours. Age to age, you never change. You still take my breath away. King of all creation, Holy One, there is no one like you. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, you're so beautiful. I fall down before you, Jesus, Jesus, you can have it all. All of my heart is yours. I want a heart that burns with holy fire. Lord, you deserve it all. Lord, you deserve it all. I need a hallelujah that reaches higher. Lord, you deserve it all. Lord, you deserve it all. I want a heart that burns with holy fire. Lord, you deserve it all. Lord, you deserve it all. I need a hallelujah that reaches higher. Lord, you deserve it all. Lord, you deserve it all. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, you're so beautiful. I fall down before you, Jesus, Jesus, you can have it all. All of my heart is yours. Oh Lord, you're beautiful. Your face is all I see. For when your eyes are on this child, your grace abounds to me. Oh, you're beautiful. Your face is all I see.